was good enough for me to put it on my computer. And I do use something like PaintShop to actually increase the well, I'm not using it to change the picture. I'm using it to try to enhance the quality of the picture, basically. And I was able to add more contrasting and lighting up that dark area. And lo and behold, I was able to make out the full body of the Bigfoot, and then taking a closer examination of the part where, around the head area and the two hands, and it was pretty evident that he had his right hand extended with the fingers extended out. You can actually see this in the photo. And he's waving at me, and he's smiling. He's got his other hand on a branch or a stick. The second photo, he's still standing there, but now the wave turns into pointing at me with his head turned towards the left. So I surmised that was him talking to another person, another Bigfoot. So that whole thing, I could play it out in my mind how that conversation would say, hey, first of all, humans waving and I'm waving back, and I think this is cool. And then telling his buddy that, hey, this is pretty, look at her. She's, she knows we're here. So it was awesome, actually. And that's just one of probably dozens of experiences I had in that area. I still do. If you had 5 hours, I could probably scratch the surface on a lot of this,
Oh, yeah. So, what's the biggest one you've seen in height and weight, roughly? Just out of curiosity.
I couldn't estimate weight, but a pretty stock, probably one that was about, he looked to be about 12 feet tall, maybe. Yeah, about that. Pretty stocky, And
have you noticed like the long arms? That's what I noticed when the one I saw. Yeah, and that's what kind of, how can I say it? I found it so intriguing. I only turned around maybe once or twice in that whole 2-mile run back to the car. But I swear I noticed when I turned around, it was running really fast, but it was going from 2 to 4, 2 to 4, just like that. It was so interesting.
Oh, you mean, just switch. Yeah, they do that. I actually had the young ones like it when they run fast, so go on all fours because it can get better traction, obviously. What was I going to say about the adult? So the adult, that one encounter was the only time I actually seen the full body. Now I've sometimes I can actually see them and take the picture. My eyes can probably only see a dark spot, but something tells me that they're there, and I'll take a picture, and I have to take a really high resolution picture and enlarge it, and then do a little bit of lighting work, pull out the light, because there's a reason why they're so dark in pictures in the first place. It has to do with the color that they're emitting, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. It's something a little bit bizarre about colors that we can't see, and.
Well, I will say something, okay?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people I'm colorblind, but you know what? It's really weird on my colorblindness. I'll be looking at somebody's car, and I'll say, wow, what happened to your car? And they go, what do you mean? I said, well, hey, your front fender's a little bit off on color than the rest of the car. They look at it, they go, no, it's dead on. And it's been that way my whole life. And, I try to explain to, the eye doctors and all that stuff. In the past, I said, I really think they need to do more research on color blindness because I think it can all vary. And I think some people who are colorblind can actually see shades of colors that people that aren't colorblind, don't see. So, that is, how can I say?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Yes.
You put the nail on the head. Man, you just got right into it, didn't you? The reason I'm saying is that most people, I'd almost wish I could test people on their ability to distinguish between two shades. Let's say you had a very razor-thin shade between this color green and this shade of green. And then if most people says, I just see one thing. but you probably could see the difference between those shades. You know, in your way, you probably see it in grayscale, and you probably can see the different shades of grayscale. Okay?
Well, you know, in colorblindness too, you know, when I was back in junior high school and grade school and high school, I have had actually teachers. I had a teacher one time call me a liar and said, "You're not colorblind. Why can't you learn the color chart?" And I go, I'm sorry, you know, my blues and purple run together. Some of my reds will run into to browns and greens will run together, yellows, and you know, it was weird. But I see a lot of shades that. In my mind, I see them. And it's funny, for a while, when I got out of high school, my parents said, "Hey, you got to get a trade." And so I went and took auto body for, I think, like 6 months at the community college. And it wasn't for me. But I tried, you know, it was interesting. Even the instructors were always shocked. I could say, "That doesn't match." You know, and they say, "Yeah, it's dead on. It's dead on." And everybody would look at it and it's dead on. We can't tell. And I can say, "Hey, it's a little bit too light. It's a little bit too dark. It has a little bit more, it just, and I was right. You know, I could go right to the part where they, where they touched it up and, repainted the fender or whatever they did on blending and said, "Hey, here it is. Doesn't match. Here it is right here." And I could see that. So I do think there's people that can go out in the woods and see things that maybe a lot of people wouldn't even begin to see. Like if the Bigfoot can cloak themselves, for example, or something, I think somebody else that sees a different spectrum of colors, might be able to see more.
What they're able to see is, and I had that in the beginning, where a lot of it is your perception. There's two factors involved. One is your eye's ability. So you got cones and rods in your eyes, and you have three different cones for the three different color ranges, and then the rods are your nighttime vision, your black and white. Animals obviously have more rods, because they can see at night better, But those ranges vary on people, with the color ranges, and the sensitivity is different too. So different people, you could show them the same picture and get 10 different people say, "I can clearly see a Bigfoot in here," and then 2 or 3 other people can't see anything. Says, "I think I see something." Every person will see something different because they cannot do. The ones that can't see anything just simply are if it's between the perception that of something, they're only looking for something they've already seen in their life. And they're trying to do this matching process in their mind, and if their mind doesn't match up to something they've already seen, it doesn't register. But you got to get beyond that. You're really trying to, first of all, you got to get past that programming of your mind telling you there's nothing there. Okay, you got to keep an open mind. And secondly, is this the ability of the eyes itself to develop the skill, or in my case, over the 4 years of examining photos, after studying hundreds of pictures. I couldn't tell you how many hours I would just look very carefully. I would examine the different shades. I would just meticulously look at different shadings between different types of things and objects and things like that. For some reason, in the last couple of years, I've had the ability, and especially when it comes to the little people now, that they're going to blend in. The cryptids, I'm going to call it, whether the Bigfoots or the little people, will tend to blend into the background, okay? So here's this green bush, basically, or whatever, and you look. Oh, most people say green bush. But if you're able to see the hairline shade differences between, you can actually start seeing form. You can see their form, okay? And you're going to have someone accuse you of, "Oh, that's just pareidolia." You're just looking at, you see Elvis in your coffee cup or whatever. No, this is,
or God
yeah.
when you go to International Pancake House, right? And your hot cake, when you put syrup on it, you see Jesus. I mean, there's people that see stuff like that, and
I actually have a picture up on the hill, and it looks like Jesus. Somehow in the trees and everything, shades that made it look like Jesus up there. I don't know.
I remember back 20-some years ago, and it hit all the news media when I was broadcasting, somebody on a piece of toast, they saw Mother Mary, and on a piece of toast. And
that makes good news item. Yep,
yeah,
I know.
Yeah, but I hate to say it, a lot of those people, are looking for a minute of fame. And then, unfortunately, after that, they have no more credibility. No,
and it's just like the other thing too that I look for is I'm trying to look at the surrounding bushes, surrounding trees, surrounding vegetation. If something looks like Bigfoot and looks like the Bigfoot's head or whatever, but yet it's on a leaf, well, obviously it can't be right because of the fact that you're, that might be, because Bigfoot's heads are bigger than that. There's a size ratio proportion to your surrounding environment. If, in fact, that's what you're trying to hone your attention towards is looking for the Bigfoots specifically. Expect the young ones to be anywhere from very small, from a foot, the babies or whatever can get around pretty good, but they'll be pretty small, and they grow up pretty huge. So, but then when you start dealing with the really small things, then that's where it becomes like a little bit more meticulous and a little bit careful about what you're looking at, because the smaller you go, the more chance of error, unless you know what you're really looking for, and this has to do with the little people themselves. They'll do the same thing. There's a blending going on, but I can take a photo now, and the thing I've learned to do is they'll go, the thing I was going to tell you was this darkness that you see, like the Bigfoots, how they say they're in the shadows and everything. That darkness is a color. They can change their color up into the ultraviolet range. Well, here's this is something I'm starting to write about. I'm trying to put it in the new book, whenever I get that done. Had to do with the fact that if the color changes, how do they change the color? It's a different subject. Quantum shifting, I don't know. Then you start going into, but there is precedent for changes of color. There's an excellent video out on the internet, from YouTube, for instance, about how the octopus can all of a sudden adapt its entire body to a coral reef, and you'd never know it was there. It literally changes and morphs right in front of your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Changes color. It's the most awesome video. The listeners should try to look that up. And I wouldn't know the exact search terms you need to use for it, but if that creature can do it, then think about the potential that other creatures can do it as well. So think about color adaptability. But also think about colors that go up into a range that most humans can't see. We have a lower zone of light spectrum we can see and an upper zone. And it may vary a little bit. For instance, children, can see higher ranges, down and up. If you go down below red, then you're going into infrared range. If you go above, like violet and purple, then you're in the lower end of the ultraviolet zone. Okay? Now, this is kind of interesting. Think about this. Children. There are reasons why, as you get older, the lenses on your eyes will start to filter out UV light. Okay? And then even though your cones can actually pick up those higher or lower ranges, can actually pick up those ranges of UV light, the older you get, the more it filters it out. Young children can actually see those higher ultraviolet lights. You ever think about children talking about their imaginary friends when they're young?
Oh, I was just going to tell you. My daughter, one of my daughters, when she was a little girl, would talk to her imaginary friend, and for a while, I would look at her, Of course, she was really involved in Paul Geist, the movie. She would sit there and watch it over and over and over again. To the point where I actually had to cut the tape without her knowing I did it, because it was like every day for months. But the thing is, she'd be talking to her imaginary friend, and we had like 3 cats. Now, the cats would be, staggered in the front room, but when she was talking to her friend, right, they were looking off where she was, where the friend would be. And then if it was funny if like all of a sudden, all the three cats' heads would just kind of like they were following something, which I couldn't see anything, and it comes down to the point that I've had a couple guests on my show that, kids at a certain age